have you back here again for another edition of Seahawk Boys TV. I'm your host, Mike Barra, Seahawk Boy Mike in Las Vegas, Nevada. It is great to be back with you guys again. I haven't been on here for a while. I've been doing strictly football with my buddy Brian Engelman instead on Thursdays, but it's time for a separate standalone Seahawk Boys TV video right now. And there's a lot to talk about. There's some things happening around the league. The Super Bowl has just completed. The Philadelphia Eagles have won. And I think it brings up the question is how do the Seahawks get back to the big game? How do they get back to the Super Bowl? How do they become the team that we all remember back in the early 2010s, 20 teens, back when we were actually serious contenders? Is there a path back? Because right now the Seahawks are mired in mediocrity, and the problem is there doesn't seem to be any path forward for them right now. All right, everybody, welcome back to Seahawk Boys TV. I'm your host, Mike Barra in Las Vegas, Nevada. And I think we'll start with just putting a little bit of a window over there with some Super Bowl highlights. Hopefully, I don't get demonetized or taken down off of the YouTube channels for posting this stuff. But, it was a really interesting game. It was a fun game. It was fun to watch the Chiefs get their comeuppance. And, it's really interesting. Shannon Sharp said something which I thought was a little bit on the interesting side. He basically said that this game was allowed to happen because the NFL, let me see if I can find the specific quote. Shannon Sharp, Super Bowl. He said in essence that there was so many eyes on this Super Bowl that the refs couldn't fix the game. That basically the NFL backed off the script, which he said was designed to give the Chiefs the three-peat. I mean, all you heard all week long leading up to this game was three-peat, chance to make history. And he said on the commentary that he was doing, and I had it earlier. I don't see it here now, so I'm not going to be able to quote it exactly. Now, look, I think Shannon Sharp, quite honestly, is a scumbag. He's actually a neighbor of mine here. He lives over on Sahara, just off Sahara, near Marshawn Lynch. They're within a block or so of each other, and near my friends Jim and Regina. But he said, in essence, hi Sabrina, hi Live, Love, and Learn Naturally. Hi guys, I'm just going to talk about a little football right here. I'm going to do strictly football later with Brian later today. But he said basically that the script was in. They were gonna make sure the Chiefs won the game again, but they couldn't do it because there was so much conversation about the officiating and how the Chiefs had only gotten there because of the refs and the Josh Allen first down call, which was declared not a first down, even though everybody could see it was a first down. And early on in the game, once again, we had a very controversial call. I think it might be coming up right here, where or actually it may have already gone, but where Jalen Hurts threw a deep ball up the sidelines, very accurate deep ball, by the way. And this might be it right here. And it was called, well, no, that's not it. That's a touchdown. It was called offensive pass interference. Very controversial call. Absolutely ridiculous. Two guys grappling a little bit. No shove off. No offensive pass interference. But that was the only call the Chiefs really got. They had a few other helpful calls along the way, but basically the Eagles dominated the line of scrimmage. Here you're going to see Jalen Hurts push it in with a tush push for a touchdown. It's an unstoppable play. They have a good offensive line. They have a great offensive line, good defensive line. They control the game. They dominated. And again, I've said for years that Mahomes is not that special, that he has some terrific talents when everything goes his way. He's a front runner. There were guys that were great race car drivers like Alain Prost, who was a French Formula One driver in the 1980s and 90s. And he was a front runner. When he had the best car, he'd take off, he'd run away, he'd win easily. But when you put him under pressure, when you made him race against Ayrton Senna and some of the other great guys, he couldn't really handle it. He didn't do very well in those situations. And the same thing applies to Patrick Mahomes. He's been surrounded by Hall of Fame receivers his whole life. He's got Travis Kelsey. He had Tyreek Hill. He's got good running game. They've really invested in the offensive line, and now it looks like they're going to have to reinvest in the offensive line again. He has the ability to scramble, and he has the best. He has a Hall of Fame offensive mind, a Hall of Fame offensive coach, scheming guys wide open for him. When they played the Eagles 2 years ago, he had two fourth quarter touchdowns to win the game. They were both dump off screen passes to guys that Andy Reid schemed wide open, that literally any quarterback in the NFL, and even me or Rob Staten, could have thrown those passes. They were easy plays that any quarterback in the NFL could have, should have made without any problem whatsoever. So what I think about Mahomes, and you see him, is that when he's pressured, he's ordinary. He can still scramble around a little bit, but he is ordinary. He doesn't handle pressure nearly as well as Russell Wilson, for instance, who's been under pressure his entire career because the Seahawks refused to invest in offensive linemen for him. They just expected him to save them all the time with his legs. And then when his legs and his hand got injured and he couldn't run around quite as efficiently, they got rid of him and tried to say, see, everything was Russ's fault. So um, I'm not saying he's not a great player. I'm not saying he's not an all-time great. I'm not saying he's not going to the Hall of Fame, because he should. He's deserving of going to the Hall of Fame. And I'm talking about Mahomes here, not Russ, although Russ is also an easy Hall of Famer. See my video on that subject, link in the description. But what Mahomes has done is, hey, Sylvie, a snowy Quebec, Canada, aka the soon to be the 51st state. But Mahomes is pretty average when you put him under a lot of pressure. He was under a lot of pressure in this game. What was it? 30 to nothing before they put 34 to nothing before they put any points on the board. It ended up being 40 to 20, 22, something like that. And it was it was just complete domination by the Eagles. Now, there is, of course, this faction, these factional fights going on in Seahawks Twitter, Seahawksville, the Seahawks blogosphere. And you have one side of it. You have, the Jeff Simmonses and the Dan Veens and the Seahawks retard Nelson and the Brian Nemscullers. Those guys who are like, oh, well, you build in the trenches first. You build the offense and then you go find a quarterback, as if you could just go find a quarterback. You can't ever find a quarterback if you never draft one, like the Seahawks have not done since March 8th, 2022, when they traded away the greatest player in franchise history, Russell Wilson. You can't find your quarterback unless you go find one, unless you take a shot. And they've never done that. And we've talked about that over and over. Rob Staten recently was on me responding on YouTube about, oh, don't you ever talk about anything else? Well, yeah, I do. And I'm going to talk about a lot of other things today besides that. But seeing as how quarterback is the most important position on the field, period. No, I'm going to talk about quarterback because it's the one biggest shortcoming that the Seattle Seahawks have. And the reason why they're not in this game, they're not in that game right there. That's why, is because of our quarterback. Now, people have tried to say, oh, well, the defense wins championships. No, it doesn't. What won a championship last year? Offense. Mahomes. Mahomes wasn't under pressure that much against the 49ers. And he carved them up in overtime for the touchdown that they needed to win. That was elite quarterback play that won the Super Bowl last year against the number 2 ranked defense in the NFL in the Super Bowl in overtime. 49ers. But hey, defense won this game. I don't think so. Jalen Hurts won this game. Jalen Hurts is an elite quarterback, at least top 10. I say top 5. And there are people still arguing on Seahawks Twitter that Geno Smith is just as good or better than Jalen Hurts, or that the Eagles could have beaten the Chiefs with Geno Smith at quarterback. 34-year-old current Geno Smith. I don't think so at all because Jalen Hurts made a lot of plays with his legs. His running ability at quarterback is elite. He's the best running quarterback in the NFL, and his passing improves every year. His accuracy, his deep ball, everything. Is he an elite deep ball thrower? No, but look at some of these throws here. Look at him. This guy fires accurately. He does a terrific job getting the ball out to the guys that are open. He throws the ball deep. Well, he never used to do that. Does an absolutely fantastic job. Jalen Hurts accounted for 290 some yards, almost 300 yards. Now, yards are a fantasy stat, they don't count, but 290 some yards between his legs and his arm. And he put 21 points on the board. The Eagles scored 40 points in that game. And you're telling me that defense wins championships? The Chiefs' points were all in garbage time. I will give you that. But it was the offense that put this game away. And it's not like Kansas City's defense is garbage. They have a terrific defense, one of the top 2 or 3 defenses in the league. And Jalen Hurts carved them up like a Christmas turkey, one of my favorite sayings. He scored the tush push. The deep pass on the play right before that should have been a touchdown. He had another deep pass that was called back on the ridiculous OPI. That's probably 3 more points. And he had 2 touchdown passes. So he accounted for 21 points, which is all it really would have taken to win that game, all by himself. Not Saquon, not anybody else. The defense had a pick six, Cooper DeJean, and I can have Dak Prescott. Okay, Larry, I will take Dak Prescott over what the Seahawks have now. So don't kid yourself that offense didn't win this championship. They scored 55 points, I think, in the divisional round. 55 points? You're telling me that their defense won that, scored 50? It's the same crap we used to hear about Russell Wilson. You know, oh, well, the defense won him his Super Bowl. Oh, did it? You know, Russell Wilson has, his running game won him the Super Bowl. Beast and the LOB. Russell Wilson has like 390 some touchdown passes in his career. He's 12th all time. He's going to be 7th or 8th before he retires. How many of those touchdown passes did Marshawn Lynch and the LOB throw? Not to do Illuminati here, but 0. Be seeing you. 0. So don't give me this crap. Having an elite quarterback, and Jalen Hurts is elite, no question, is the crucial thing to winning a Super Bowl. And we don't have one. We don't have one. Now, is that the only thing this team needs? Absolutely not. But this whole concept of building through the trenches, oh, you got to build the trenches. Well, guess what? The Seahawks have drafted 7 defensive linemen in the last 3 drafts, which, by the way, are not better than the previous drafts. They just suck less. They're not really good drafts. They just suck less. None of them are really particularly good. And we're going to go into that. We're going to review the 2024 draft class here. They're not really any good. So I think you can make a significant argument, a very strong argument, that John Schneider and Pete Carroll before him don't know how to draft in the trenches. They do a shitty job on the offensive line. They do a shitty job on the defensive line. So I don't think you can make the argument that you can build this team through the trenches like the Eagles are and then win with a mid quarterback like Geno Smith. Geno's not terrible. He's, in the last 3 years, better than I ever thought he was. But he's not good enough. Look at that pass. Look at that pass from Jalen Hurts. Tell me that's not an exceptional throw. A little bit behind him. Not quite a Russell Wilson throw, but 92% of Russ on that throw. The depth, the timing, the accuracy. And yeah, he had time to throw. That's important. So we're going to talk about the quarterback. We're going to talk about lots of other things today. All right, let's drop the Super Bowl highlights. We all know what happened, and let's get into a little bit of a presentation here. It's going to be short, I promise, not too many slides. The question is, what do we do? What do the Seahawks do moving forward? And I think we got to get out of this commitment to mediocrity, which is where we are right now. The way the Seahawks do business, the way John Schneider does business, doesn't get you back to a Super Bowl. It only guarantees you one thing: mediocrity. Commitment to mediocrity. 8-9, 9-8. Don't give me this 10-7 BS. The Rams game was an exhibition game. Geno padded his stats in that game. So, what are we going to do? Well, there's a new opportunity out now. Aaron Rodgers has been informed officially that he will be released by the New York Jets. So, the problem the Seahawks have is that they have to decide what they are. What do I think they are? Is if anybody cares about my opinion, let me tell you, I'll tell you what I think they are. I think we're a middling football team with not too many great players. Leonard Williams, JSN. Those are the only two guys I wouldn't trade on this roster right now. Or I would trade Leonard Williams under the right circumstances. But those are the two best players on the roster. Devon Witherspoon is gotten to a couple Pro Bowls. I don't think he's that good. I think he's at or slightly below a Pro Bowl level, but he's also a nickel corner. Slot guy. That's not an impact position. And defensive tackle in a 43 can be, but isn't always an impact position, not like an edge. So I think they're a middling team with a middling quarterback who's between 17 and 25 in terms of quarterbacks. Geno is the best of the guys who aren't good enough. Aren't good enough to win a Super Bowl. So I think the only way we get out of this cycle is I would tear it down to the studs, and we've done this frequently. I'll show you again. We'll go over the salary cap. Tear it down to the studs. Go find a quarterback to build around and build around him. And if that quarterback doesn't work out, take another one next year, and another one the year after, and another one the year after until you find a guy. That's what I would do. But the Seahawks seem to think that they're contenders. They behave like they're contenders. They re-signed or extended Leonard Williams. They restructured him, taking him from being a guy that they could save $12, $13 million in cap space by trading to a guy that's now untradeable. Now, I've been called crazy by my buddy Rob Staten for suggesting the Seahawks should consider trading Leonard Williams. But Leonard Williams is your best player. He's over 30. He probably just had his best season, not going to repeat that. If this isn't the time to trade Leonard Williams for a third and a fifth, or even a pair of thirds or third and a fourth, I don't know what is. And you need the draft picks to execute a new replacement plan. So, but let's say I'm wrong. Let's say the Seahawks are contenders. And when I say contenders, I don't mean contenders to win the division or get in the playoffs and get knocked out after a game or two. I mean Super Bowl contenders. Seahawks seem to think that they're Super Bowl contenders. Well, what do you do if you're a Super Bowl contender? You look dispassionately at your quarterback and you ask yourself, is he good enough in a league that depends on elite quarterback play to win Super Bowls at this point? It absolutely does. The last non-elite quarterback to win a Super Bowl was Nick Foles 10 years ago. Only 3 or 4 in the last 25 years have won Super Bowls. Trent Dilfer, Joe Flacco, Nick Foles, Brad Johnson. I think that's 4 guys that I would say were non-elite that won Super Bowls. The last one was 10 years ago. So that means 21 out of 25 last Super Bowl champions have all been elite quarterbacks, top 10 at their position when they played in the Super Bowl, top 5 in most cases, all-time greats in the case of Tom Brady, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Ben Roethlisberger, Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, Hall of Famers all. That's what you need to win a Super Bowl. Do the Seahawks have that right now? The answer to that question is no. They don't have that. So, how do we get to that next level? Better yet, how does Mike change the slide number? Sorry, Restream redid a bunch of their there we go. How do you get there? How do you get out of this commitment to mediocrity that the Seahawks are mired in? That's what I'm trying to ask. Okay, so let's look at Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be released. Oh, he's washed. He sucks. He needs to retire. How did he do this year? 3,897 yards, so 3,900 yards. 28 touchdown passes. 11 interceptions, 63% completion percentage. That's not that great. But let's look at the guy who won MVP, Josh Allen. 3,731 passing yards, 28 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and a 63.3% completion percentage. As Aaron Rodgers once said, down years for me are career years for other quarterbacks. He's not wrong. Now, are these stats super stellar? Well, no, not necessarily. I mean, you look at his comparison to the guy I want him to replace, Geno Smith. Geno had more yards. Geno had more yards per game. He had a slightly better passer rating, although 3 points is really, they're basically equivalent. He ran the ball a little bit better than Aaron Rodgers. His completion percentage was higher. But Aaron Rodgers had 11 more touchdown passes. Now, Geno, it says 21 here. Geno Smith did not have 21 touchdown passes in games, real games. He only played in 16 games that counted. The last game against the Rams was an exhibition game. He was playing against the Rams' second and third string guys, and he padded his stats. Geno had a 1-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Rodgers had an almost 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. And by the way, that's elite. Anytime you're in that 3-to-1 range, you're elite. That's what the great quarterbacks do. They don't make the mistakes, and they get the touchdowns. So in reality, Rodgers had 11 more touchdown passes than Geno and far fewer mistakes. And a big chunk of Geno's 15 interceptions were catastrophic mistakes, pick sixes and such, and in the red zone. You look over their career, it's not comparable. Games obviously are a lot more, but the passing yards per game, the passing touchdowns, touchdown to interception ratio, the quarterback rating. Again, Rodgers an all-time great at 101.5. Rushing attempts, the rushing yards per attempt. 7 Pro Bowls, 3 All-Pros, 2 MVPs, and a Super Bowl MVP. So why would you not want a guy who can still play better than your current quarterback and has 7 Pro Bowls, 3 first-team All-Pros, 3 MVP awards, and a Super Bowl MVP? A guy who's been there, a guy who's done it, a guy who is good enough to win a Super Bowl. Now, did Rodgers have a great year? No, he didn't in some ways. He did not have the greatest year he's ever had. And somebody was criticizing him the other day and said, well, he's not that bad, but what I see is a guy who's lost his mobility. He's not as mobile as he used to be. Well, that's true because he's 42 or 43 years old and coming off a torn Achilles tendon. Now, if you know anything about football, a torn Achilles, a player does not regain full function from an Achilles until his second year back. But he played a completely healthy year. He played the entire year. Rob got on my case again in the YouTube comment section. Aaron Rodgers is a pain in the ass. The Jets didn't even want him back. The Jets. Well, okay, Rob thinks that means Aaron Rodgers is a big problem. What I think that means is that the Jets are a catastrophically fucktarded organization. That the Jets are a joke. Robert Saleh was a joke. Their general manager is a joke. And by the way, Rodgers did all this with a significantly inferior skill position guys around him. Garrett Wilson is their best receiver. Jackson Smith-Njigba and DK Metcalf are both better than Garrett Wilson. The Seahawks have better talent. Breece Hall was their running back. The Jets. Ken Walker is the running back here. Zach Charbonnet and Ken Walker. So you don't think that Rodgers can do more with those offensive tools than Geno Smith did? You're crazy. Oh, but our offensive line's terrible. Okay, let's say it is. I think that's overstated. Aaron Rodgers continues to have one of the quickest releases in NFL history. He gets rid of the ball. And I'm not saying Geno holds it a long time. He doesn't always, but he's in the middle of the pack. Aaron Rodgers is elite at getting the ball out. So that's going to make him more effective, even if we don't upgrade our offensive line than Geno Smith was last year. Also, you look at Geno's stats, 4,320 yards, 500 yards more. 2,300 of Geno's yards were run after the catch. This is a typical passing chart. This is from the Miami game. This is a typical Geno Smith passing chart. 90% of his throws were within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage. The run after the catch of Fant, Metcalf, especially JSN, Lockett, Walker, Charbonnet, that's where a huge chunk, almost 50% of Geno's yards came from. So I don't rate yards at all. Yards are a fantasy stat. But Aaron Rodgers would have probably even more yards than Geno. Geno only throws deep, rarely, and when he does, it's to a wide open guy. He only throws it when the guy's wide open. Geno does not throw the ball deep into tight windows. Aaron Rodgers still can, which I think is very significant. So, do I think it would be worth going after Aaron Rodgers? The answer to that is yeah. But only if the Seahawks are serious about being contenders. Now, what that means is that they really think they can go to a Super Bowl. And they think they can go to a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. So you go get him. His cap hit will be half of what Geno Smith is. If the Seahawks picked up his contract on waivers, let's say, his cap charge would be about $23.5 million. Geno's cap charge is going to be like $44 million. So right away, you go from being $13 million over the cap to $12 million under the cap. And then you can cut some other dead wood, which we'll talk about in a minute, and create enough cap space to go sign, let's say, 2 offensive linemen on the left side and center to protect Aaron Rodgers. So if you do think you are a contender, then this is exactly what you should do if you're the Seattle Seahawks. Exactly what you should do. Question is, will they do it? And it'll tell you, because if they think that they can contend by keeping the same roster and keeping the same quarterback, they're crazy. It's going to be another nothing year where we just sit in the middle of the pack and don't do anything. So other people are saying, well, that's crazy. Why would you trade Leonard Williams? That's crazy. What about, why don't we draft? We'll just use the draft to go get a quarterback. Maybe this year or next year. Well, you need one sooner than that. But so let's look at how the Seahawks have drafted. I've said, and I've got a video, it's not that the Seahawks last 2 drafts, this is before last year, have been good. They just suck less than the previous 7. That's one of my videos. So what was the Seahawks draft class last year? It was Byron Murphy, Christian Haynes, Nehemiah Pritchett, corner out of Auburn, Tyrese Knight, linebacker, AJ Barner, tight end, DJ James, another corner at a position we didn't need, Satoa Lamea, and Michael Jarrell, a couple of offensive linemen. So, how good was that draft class really? And I'm gonna close this out. How good was that draft class really? Well, let's go take a look. And I did a recent thing on my Seahawk Boy Twitter, Seahawk Boy Mike B Twitter, and I looked at the Seahawks draft class and I analyzed it and gave it a grade. So let's go back through John Schneider's most recent draft class. All right, round 1, pick 15. I think it was actually pick 16. Byron Murphy, defensive tackle for Texas. Murphy was a huge disappointment, rated by PFF as the 5th worst first-round pick. He produced only 12 tackles and half a sack. Far from the game record, not fame record, right? Game record he was advertised as, Murphy made little impact and saw his snaps decline as the season went along. Unlike delusional Seahawks Twitter, who were giddy about the pick. Rob, I include you in this. Rob and Jeff, they were just giddy. Oh, we got Byron Murphy. Oh, we're doing Byron Murphy. Brian Numskuller. I never liked Murphy. I felt like he wasn't an impact player. And even if he was, he played a low impact position and didn't represent a good value at the 16th pick. Turns out, year 1, I was right. I preferred the Seahawks take a quarterback or an offensive lineman with this pick, as those were far bigger needs, which we found out as the season progressed. I actually liked his teammate, Trevondre Sweat, a lot more. And the only hope that we really have is that Murphy was playing injured and that he kept him from getting off the snap like he should have made plays. But he'll have to make a quantum leap to even be an average player. Now, that I'm standing by that. I absolutely stand by that. And if you look at his highlights, he's just. Let's watch a highlight.
Watch Byron Murphy beat his man one-on-one with this awesome pass rush.
That play, he did nothing.
Watch Byron Murphy beat his man.
Let's go to the next clip.
Let's do some
also in the Jets game.
Brilliant Byron Murphy. Oh, yeah, one guy. Yeah.
Oh, missed him. Missed the running back. Over his feet after somebody else stopped him.
Let's do some film study on brilliant.
All right. So, point made, point well taken. Let me go back over to where I was. Go back over to the. There I was. Close that out. Get back over here to this one. Okay. There are people still trying to argue with me. Unbelievably, people still trying to argue with me in Seahawks Twitter that Byron Murphy is elite. That Byron Murphy is going to be great. That the NFL has a Byron Murphy problem. Look, I wanted them to succeed. Like I said, I looked at him as a 34 defensive end. They tried him at nose tackle. He didn't do anything at nose tackle either. His snaps kept declining as the season went along. The impact players on that defensive line were Jaron Reed and Big Cat, Leonard Williams. Byron Murphy did almost nothing. 12 tackles and a half a sack. And all we heard about was what a game wrecker he was going to be. Well, no, he wasn't. So his grade is a D. Now, can he make a quantum leap in his second year? Yeah, sure. But Boye Mafe played better. Derek Hall played better for phases. But Murphy has to make a quantum leap to even be an average player. Right now, he plays like an undrafted free agent. Compare his stats with Poona Ford. Poona Ford's first year is about the same as Byron Murphy. That's not what you expect out of the 16th pick in the draft. He is a classic John Schneider overdraft. And if you wanted a game wrecker, you should have gone and got Braden Fisk. Because that guy's a game wrecker. So we'll see if he develops, but honestly, it's scary how bad he is. It's like scary. All right. Moving along now. Let's get down to the next grade. Christian Haynes, round 3, pick number 81, offensive guard from UConn. After passing over Troy Fatanu, Jared Verse, and Braden Fisk in the first round, and the Seahawks pivoted to address the offensive line in round 3 with pick number 81. They took a right guard for the second consecutive year in Christian Haynes, despite already having Anthony Bradford on the roster to play the position. They passed on a natural left guard, which was a far greater need, in Zach Center, and completely missed on the best offensive guard available, Dominic Pooney, who was snapped up by the 49ers with the 86th pick. Haynes was a complete bust, lacking the intelligence to understand the position and the strength to hold up at the point of attack. Like Murphy, he will need to make a quantum leap to even be an average backup at the NFL level. Grade F. They had 2 or 3 other options. They could have picked him. He's an F. Round 4, Tyrese Knight, linebacker, Utah, finally addressing one of their biggest needs. Linebacker was a need. Knight was a nice surprise in the 4th round. He finished with 88 tackles, 1.5 sacks, a fumble recovery, and 2 pass deflections. And the defense started to come around when he was pushed into the starting lineup along with Ernest Jones after the Seahawks gave up on free agent busts Jerome Baker and Terrell Dodson. Knight has some upside and was a solid find. That grade is a B. Round 4, A.J. Barner, tight end, typical 4th round blocking tight end. Having ignored their biggest need, quarterback, this was the spot where the Seahawks should have addressed it when first round talent Spencer Rattler fell to them. Instead, they burned the pick on a bad player at a position they had no need. He barely played and produced. Oh, sorry, that's Nehemiah Pritchett. Barner surprised a little bit in the passing game with 30 receptions, 245 yards, and 4 TDs. He looks like what he is, a typical 4th round role player. He's Will Dissly 2.0. Give him a C. I don't see a lot of upside, but I do see a solid player. And again, Nehemiah Pritchett, cornerback at Auburn, he barely played, produced only 5 tackles and 1 pass defense. The fact that he even played and made the team makes him a D. So that is the pick where they should have selected Spencer Rattler to have a quarterback for the future. Now, the 6th and 7th round, they did a little bit better. The 6th round, they took Satoa Lamea, offensive guard from Utah. He was pushed into service because Haynes was so bad, but Lamea played pretty well. And as a rookie starter for the Seahawks, he started 6 games and may have a place as a future backup. So you give him a C. DJ James, their second 6th round pick, cornerback from Auburn, having already wasted a pick on Pritchett. The Seahawks doubled down on a stupid and took his teammate DJ James in the 6th round. He was a complete bust and was waived in training camp. That's another F. Round 6, pick 207. They took Michael Jarrell from Finley. He was a pleasant surprise. He started 3 games and did okay and might be a backup someday. Again, a C. Just to evaluate the draft, they failed to address their number 1 need despite multiple opportunities to do so. For the 3rd straight year after trading Russell Wilson, they ignored the quarterback position. First 2 picks were near complete busts, and the only overperformer of the draft class was linebacker Tyrese Knight. Add to that the fact that they were offered a package by the Jaguars. And this is true. They said they were offered a trade and turned it down. The next pick after them, the Vikings and the Jaguars did a deal that would have included picks 23, last year, 167, and 2025 picks number 88 and 125. and they turned it down. So that makes it even worse. They could have had wide receiver Brian Thomas or Fisk and 3 other players. Instead, they have Byron Murphy, who's done basically nothing. Overall, this was another below average John Schneider draft. After a decade of below average drafts, Schneider needs to go before he squanders more draft capital. Overall grade D. I don't say you can argue with me on that. This is a D draft class, especially considering what they could have done. Imagine if they'd taken the Jaguars deal. They have a 3rd and a 5th this year, in addition to trading down to 23, where they could have had Thomas or Fisk or even Pooney or any number of other players that would have contributed far more than Byron Murphy did. But oh no, Byron Murphy was so damn great. Byron Murphy's not great. He's not going to be great. We'll be lucky if he ever gets to average. So you combine all these things, and this was a miserable draft class. So what are they going to do? How are they going to move forward? Well, again, decide what you are. If you want to contend for a Super Bowl, go sign Aaron Rodgers, or better yet, claim him off waivers, pick up his contract, cut Geno loose, and then make some other cuts and go get some guys around him. Let's take a look again at the Seahawks salary cap situation, and let's just do all this stuff. Let's say they actually did pick up Aaron Rodgers. Not wait around and negotiate with him, try to talk him in to come into Seattle. Go out and claim him on waivers. Go out and get him. You cut Geno Smith right then. You're $13 million over the cap. You cut Geno Smith. Now you're 17 million under. Maybe you renegotiate Rodgers for a 2-year deal to make his cap number a little bit below the 23.5 million. Maybe you don't. But guess what? Now you can cut Tyler Lockett. Now you got enough space to bring in Aaron Rodgers. You got enough space to bring in Aaron Rodgers and his best buddy, Devontae Adams, future Hall of Famer, to replace Tyler Lockett as your number 3 receiver. How's that sound? Draymond Jones, $11.5 million cap savings, almost 30 years old. Uchenna Nwosu, $8 million cap savings, didn't do anything last year. Noah Fant, his cap number's got to come down, but we'll keep him from now. Rayshon Jenkins played okay, but he's 31, and we could save $5.2 million in cap. Roy Robertson Harris didn't do anything, $6.6 million cap savings. George Fant, $4 million cap savings. Oh, hell, let's just go ahead and cut Noah Fant and bring him back at the veteran minimum or something. Okay, so actually, let's not do that. I just cut guys that are all deadwood. Rayshon Jenkins had moments, but you can draft a safety. You cut the deadwood, you have $70 million in cap space. Out of that $70 million, you can extend for 2 years Aaron Rodgers. You can bring in Devontae Adams. You can re-sign Ernest Jones. You can re-sign Jaron Reed. Do you need to re-sign Jaron Reed? Is he over here in the free agents list? I don't even see him. I do not see Jaron Reed. Where is Jaron Reed on this roster? Yeah, I think he's a free agent. I'm pretty positive he's a free agent. So you pretty much bring back most of the defense. You only have to replace Draymond Jones. And you have the draft picks to do that. So with that amount of cap space, you can re-sign Reed. Oh, there he is, Jaron Reed. You can re-sign Reed. You can re-sign Ernest Jones. You can sign 2, maybe even 3 offensive linemen, including the elite center that Clint Kubiak talked about. Ryan Kelly or the other guy. and a left guard, and maybe even an insurance guard or tackle. And then you can pop into the draft and just add to what you already have. You can just add to the team that you have right now. Let's go take a look over at the current draft order and take one final look at where the Seahawks are drafting. Nope, that's not it. There we go. Okay. I hate using two different browsers, but let's look at the NFL draft order. We're picking 18th, a little bit below where we picked last year. We could sign 2 free agent offensive linemen, take another one here. Take a defensive lineman to replace Draymond Jones at the 18th pick. Trade down and still get another guy. At 50, probably pick up a quarterback. Maybe Quinn Ewers to learn behind Geno Smith. Let's say you go defensive line with the 18th pick, quarterback with the 50th pick, with the 82nd pick. Offensive line, another offensive lineman. 4th round, 137th pick. Now we would have had the 125th pick here. Sorry, it was a 4th, so we would have had an extra 3rd and an extra 5th if we'd have made that trade. But no, Byron Murphy was just too important for us to have. Just had to have him. How about linebacker here? Because we have 2 good linebackers, but no depth. 5th round, we have the 173rd pick. How about a safety? 6th round, I think we have 2 picks in the 6th round. 212. No, we just have 212. How about a kick returner? 236. Another body. So imagine then that what we're really looking at next year is we're going into the season with Aaron Rodgers for a quarterback, an elite free agent center, not elite, but Pro Bowl level free agent center, top level free agent left guard, another drafted offensive lineman that we got in the 3rd round, a young, fresh defensive lineman, maybe an edge that we got in the 1st round, a young quarterback to learn behind Aaron Rodgers and step in for him in 2 years. We also need to get a wide receiver in there somewhere. But there's tons of free agent wide receivers out there. Most of them are over 30, but we brought in Devontae Adams. So one of those late picks should probably be a running back and a wide receiver. This is the deepest running back class in forever. So when we get into the 6th round, how about taking a running back? Isaiah Pacheco was the 7th round pick. Take a running back. And then next year you can say to Ken Walker, well, we got 2 or 3 good guys behind you. We don't have to keep you. Now, what's the best part about this? What's the best part about dumping Geno and bringing in Aaron Rodgers? And again, I didn't mean to make this all about the quarterback. But what's the best part? You know what the best part is? Makes the Seahawks relevant again. Makes us a team that people talk about. Makes us a team that people watch. Gets us national TV exposure. Gives us a quarterback who can make big plays at big moments in big games to get us back into those exciting January and February football games. Don't you want that? Isn't 2 or 3 seasons of poor play coming in 27 and 28 worth it if you're relevant and maybe a contender in 26, 25 and 26? I mean, don't kid yourself. Aaron Rodgers didn't retire. He doesn't. He likes to play football. He wants to continue to play football. Because he's competitive and he's still good at it. Wouldn't that be better than 8-9, 9-8, 10-7 if we're super lucky and getting bounced out in the first round of the playoffs? Wouldn't that be better? Yep, it'd be better. That's what we should do. Not sit on our hands and do nothing and try to convince ourselves that Geno is good enough. It would be a whole different story if this team was a 12-win team. They're not. They're a 9-win team. They only won 10 because the Rams played their scrubs in week 18. Seahawks would not have won that game if the Rams starters had been out there. All right, that's it. That's what I got. Leave me comments in the video. Argue with me on Twitter. Call me a douchebag. Tell me I'm not a real Seahawks fan. I don't really care about the team because I don't support every single thing that John Schneider does. I'm sorry. My job is not to rub you out. My job is not to blow sunshine up your butt. That's not what my function is on planet Earth. It's to bring you the truth. And the truth is, we should go for it. If we're not going to go for it, then just cut everybody and trade Leonard Williams, which you can't do anymore. But trade Leonard Williams and trade DK Metcalf and get more draft picks and rebuild the team. They're not going to do that because they took away any chance they had to trade Leonard Williams by restructuring his contract. So that's not what they're going to do. So what are they going to do? John Schneider may need to pull off something big to save his job. I sincerely hope so. All right, guys, that's what I got. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate each and every one of you. I'll be back on Strictly Football with Brian Engelman talking about the Super Bowl in a little bit more depth at about 2 Pacific, 5 Eastern. I will see you then. You have a great one. And again, comment, argue with me, spread it around, piss people off. Why shouldn't we go for it? Wouldn't it be fun after 5 years of not being relevant to have people talk about the Seahawks again and actually have a quarterback that could do something in a big game? That would be exciting. See you soon. Bye. Bye. Oh, I see. Sorry.